Interracial love stories may look effortless at first glance, but the reality is far more complicated. Beneath the shine lies a world of unspoken struggles few are willing to acknowledge. Behind the glamour, discrimination, crushing social pressure, and shocking secrets can turn love into a constant fight for survival. We like to believe love conquers all, that every story ends in a fairy tale happily ever after, but real life isn't so kind. Many black and white couples have endured heartbreaking journeys marked by intense arguments and painful divisions outsiders would never imagine. So are you ready to dig beneath the polished headlines and discover the simmering conflicts behind famous black and white relationships? Stories the media has hidden, softened, or twisted. Let's uncover the truth. Lena Horne and Lenny Hayton, a love suffocated by prejudice, ending in quiet tragedy. Lena Horne was a jazz and film icon, a fearless black woman who defied barriers, enchanting millions with her velvety voice and breathtaking elegance. Lenny Hayton was a brilliant composer and one of MGM's most powerful musical directors, the creative force behind countless classic film scores. When they met, love came swiftly, but peace never followed. In 1947, they married in secret in Paris, because interracial marriage was still illegal in the United States. For 3 long years, they hid their union, afraid to even whisper the truth. Racism wasn't just written into law, it lived in cold stares, whispered insults, and open hostility from both sides. Some in the black community accused Lena of betrayal for marrying a white man. Meanwhile, much of white society viewed their relationship as taboo, an unforgivable offense. The pressure was relentless, forcing them to endure their love in silence. Hollywood showed Lena little mercy. Despite her immense talent, she was confined to small roles, often cast only as a singer on screen, never allowed to fully shine. Lenny, though influential, faced rumors of favoritism toward his wife, damaging professional relationships and deepening the strain. They came from different worlds, yet carried burdens few could understand. Tension crept in slowly, wearing them down day by day. The deepest tragedy arrived with devastating loss. Lenny died in 1971. Within just a few years, Lena also lost her father and her son. Each loss hit like a crushing wave, tearing through her heart and spirit. The weight of racism, public judgment, and personal grief nearly destroyed her. The love they once protected and nurtured became intertwined with pain, leaving scars shaped not by failure, but by a world that refused to let them love freely. Otis Redding and Zelma Atwood. A love story sealed by devotion and shattered by the sky. Otis Redding was a soul giant, the voice behind timeless classics like Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, a sound that could hush a room and break a heart in the same breath. Zelma Atwood was the steady force behind that brilliance, standing beside him from struggle to stardom. They married young and chose a quiet life, far from flashing cameras and headlines. In 1961, they wed discreetly in Georgia, at a time when an interracial marriage invited judgment, hostility, and danger. They never defended themselves publicly. They simply held on to each other, surviving in a world that wasn't built to be kind to them. As Otis's career exploded, the road became his second home. Tours stacked up. Stages lit up night after night. Yet behind the applause was a young husband weighed down by worry, 3 children at home, a wife carrying fear in her silence. Then, without warning, everything stopped. On December 10, 1967, at the peak of his rise, the small plane carrying Otis crashed into an icy Wisconsin lake, killing nearly everyone on board. Zelma heard the news over the phone. In an instant, she was frozen in an empty house, alone with 3 small children, no income, no protection, no one to lean on. While the world mourned a legend, Zelma was fighting to survive. She battled through legal chaos to secure Otis's music rights, borrowing money, facing doubt, and being overlooked as the industry moved on. History remembers Otis as an icon, but few remember the woman who carried his legacy when the applause faded. Their marriage knew no scandal, no betrayal, only loyalty and love. Like a modern Romeo and Juliet, their story ended not in drama, but in cruel, sudden loss. A true love cut short, far too soon. Sammy Davis Jr. and Mae Britt, one of the most controversial marriages in Hollywood history, poisoned by racism, political fear, and underworld threats. Sammy Davis Jr. was a once-in-a-generation talent, a jazz virtuoso, comic genius, and trailblazer who shattered racial barriers in American show business. Mae Britt, a bold Swedish actress, defied every social rule to stand beside him. When they married in 1960, interracial marriage was still illegal in 31 U.S. states, and the backlash was immediate and vicious. From the moment their engagement became public, the couple was bombarded with hatred, public outrage, and open condemnation. Their wedding was even delayed after Joseph Kennedy, father of John F. Kennedy, pressured Sammy to wait until after the election, fearing the marriage could cost vital votes. Newspapers attacked relentlessly. The New York Times reported convention delegates openly booing when Sammy appeared. The couple became a lightning rod in a brutal political and media storm. The danger went deeper. Before May, Sammy's relationship with white actress Kim Novak had drawn mafia threats, forcing him into a staged marriage with a black dancer for protection. That shadow followed him into his life with May. Fear, pressure, and constant surveillance haunted their union. By 1968, after only 8 years, the marriage unraveled, fractured by Sammy's battles with alcohol and gambling and the suffocating demands of the Rat Pack's reckless, high-stakes lifestyle. May, having sacrificed her own career to be his wife, faced conflicts she could no longer endure and walked away from Hollywood entirely. Their love story ended not in triumph, but in tragedy, swallowed by hatred, sacrifice, and the cruel illusion of celebrity glamour. Sidney Poitier and Joanna Shimkus shared a marriage forged in the crossfire of infidelity rumors, racial prejudice, and quiet, enduring sacrifice. Poitier was a cinematic giant, the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, who shattered Hollywood's racial barriers and became a symbol of dignity during the civil rights era. Shimkus, a Canadian actress celebrated for her striking beauty and understated screen presence, met him when both were at the height of their fame. But choosing each other came at a cost. Their relationship unfolded under scandal and scrutiny long before it became official. By the time they married in 1976, fractures had already begun to show. Poitier's 1965 divorce from Juanita Hardy, shadowed by allegations of infidelity, had bruised his carefully built public image. For many who viewed him as a moral compass and cultural hero, his private choices felt like betrayal. His romance with Shimkus, a white woman, only intensified the backlash. Even as America slowly warmed to interracial relationships, the couple found themselves surrounded by judgment, whispers, and relentless public curiosity. To some, Poitier seemed to be reenacting the very controversy he portrayed in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, blurring the line between art and real life. After their wedding, Shimkus quietly stepped away from her acting career, fading into the background as Poitier's world grew larger and louder. His life was consumed by fame, activism, and constant obligations, leaving him frequently absent. The distance between them wasn't just measured in miles, but in silence. Joanna lived in the shadow of his towering legacy, enduring gossip and long, lonely nights with remarkable restraint. Cultural differences and unspoken expectations slowly drained the relationship, pushing it toward emotional exhaustion. Yet they never walked away. Whether bound by loyalty, pride, or the sheer weight of shared pain, they stayed. Their 46-year marriage was not a fairy tale. It was an act of endurance, marked by pressure, compromise, and sacrifices no outsider could ever fully understand. Pearl Bailey and Louis Belson were a marriage forged in fire, bold, brilliant, and constantly under siege. Pearl was a stage queen, her commanding voice owning every spotlight she stepped into. Louis Belson was a jazz legend, his drums driving the heartbeat of an entire era. Together, they looked iconic, but their love story was never a fairy tale. It was a daily battle against prejudice and relentless pressure. When they married in 1952, they didn't just face disapproval from family, they were met with the cold, hostile stare of a racist society. The hatred went beyond whispers and insults. It became a wall that kept them from living freely. To survive, They fled to Europe, a painful but necessary escape from America's threats and judgment. Even then, peace was fragile. Both were at the height of their careers, Pearl dazzling audiences night after night, Louis constantly on the road with his jazz tours. Time together was scarce, schedules collided, and the strain fueled endless arguments and emotional exhaustion. Their love demanded sacrifice, yet balancing ambition and marriage proved brutal. Pearl was forced to prove herself again and again, not just as an artist, but as a black woman married to a white man in a deeply divided world. Still, they endured. Their nearly 40-year marriage stood as proof that love could survive hate, but it was never easy, never gentle, and never free from pain. James Earl Jones and Cecilia Hart. A love tested by prejudice, distance, and a loss that could never be repaired. James Earl Jones was a living legend, Hollywood's most commanding voice, eternally feared as Darth Vader, and a towering force on Broadway. Cecilia Hart was a respected television actress in her own right, intelligent, steady, and quietly talented. Together, they appeared to be a golden theater couple. But behind the curtain, their marriage carried weight few could see. They married in 1982, at a time when interracial relationships were no longer openly condemned, yet still quietly judged. The backlash wasn't loud, but it was there, in cold silences, withdrawn smiles, and subtle distance. A powerful black icon marrying a white woman caused some fans and colleagues to step back, isolating the couple more than either expected. Both were actors, but James's career was relentless. Star Wars, major films, and demanding stage work kept him constantly on the move. Cecilia, meanwhile, balanced raising their children, managing the home, and accepting smaller roles. They didn't fight often, but the strain grew in silence. Missed moments, endless tours, and Cecilia stepping aside so James could shine slowly suffocated the marriage. Then, in 2016, everything shattered. Cecilia was diagnosed with cancer, swift, brutal, and unforgiving. There was no time to prepare, no space for hope. She passed quietly, leaving James in a shock that never truly lifted. He later called it the greatest challenge of his life, and no one doubted him. After decades of triumph, fame, and power, he couldn't save the woman who had stood beside him for over 30 years. It was a hollow ending to a love that once seemed unbreakable. Quincy Jones and Peggy Lipton, a marriage the public never truly embraced, destined to fracture and leave scars long after the papers were signed. Quincy Jones was already a towering music legend, the genius behind Thriller and countless film and television scores. Peggy Lipton was the radiant star of the Mod Squad, a symbol of youth, beauty, and counterculture in the 1960s. To the world, they seemed like an impossible pairing. And behind their carefully staged smiles, the cracks were already forming. When they announced their marriage in 1974, Hollywood buzzed with disbelief. A powerful black music icon and a rising white television actress, America was changing, but not fast enough. Whispers followed them everywhere. Peggy was accused of chasing fame, of riding Quincy's success. Quincy, despite his unmatched achievements, still felt the weight of old prejudices quietly working against him. For a few intense years, love burned bright. But reality crept in. Quincy lived in perpetual motion. Studios, stages, private jets, a life fueled by sound and ambition. Peggy longed for something quieter, stability, presence, a grounded family life. Neither was wrong. Neither was willing to bend. By 1990, the marriage ended, not in scandal, but in exhaustion. Yet the real struggle began after the divorce. Custody battles over their two daughters, including future star Rashida Jones, reopened wounds. Who sacrificed enough. Each carried their own truth, their own pain. Though the marriage was over, its shadow lingered for years. Their story stands as a sobering reminder. Fame cannot protect love from reality, and not every legendary romance survives the weight of the world. Al Freeman Jr. and Lalita Carroll. A love story hidden in plain sight, suffocated by an era that refused to accept it. Al Freeman Jr. was a groundbreaking black actor, a daytime Emmy winner for One Life to Live, and a rare symbol of representation in a Hollywood that offered people of color little more than scraps. Lalita Carroll was quieter but no less gifted, a respected stage actress whose talent spoke louder than headlines. Together, they were quietly defiant, choosing love at a time when interracial marriage was still illegal in parts of America. In the 1960s, when the country wasn't ready to see a black man and a white woman as equals in love, they endured hostile stares, whispered threats, and open resentment simply for walking side by side. That prejudice didn't stop at the streets, it followed them into the entertainment industry. Despite his undeniable talent and charisma, Al was repeatedly denied meaningful leading roles. No explanation was ever given, but the reason was understood. Lalita gradually disappeared from the public eye as they retreated into privacy, protecting their relationship from a world eager to tear it apart. But silence didn't mean safety. They lived like fugitives from fame, constantly guarding their lives from cameras and judgment. They raised a family in the shadows, knowing one wrong move could turn love into scandal. Their marriage became a quiet psychological war between devotion and the fear of rejection. Perhaps that's why so little is known about them today. How it began, how it ended, only fragments remain. A love story muted by history, left unfinished, and almost forgotten. Morgan Freeman and Myrna Khalili. A marriage undone by whispers and sealed by tragedy. Morgan Freeman is a towering figure in cinema, an Oscar-winning legend with a voice that feels etched into history. Myrna Khalili was no less formidable in her own world, a brilliant theater designer with deep roots in the arts. Together, they appeared to be the embodiment of quiet power, elegant, private, untouchable. But behind the polished image, tension was quietly building. Their marriage, which lasted from 1984 to 2010, collapsed under the weight of scandal that still echoes through Hollywood. In 2009, explosive rumors surfaced accusing Morgan of an affair with a young teacher. The story took an even darker turn when the media dragged Adina Hines, his step-granddaughter, whom he had helped raise, into the narrative. Morgan firmly denied the allegations, yet the court of public opinion refused to let go. The rumors, though never proven, left a permanent mark. Myrna chose silence, but her actions spoke louder than words. That same year, she filed for divorce, triggering a bitter legal battle. Her demand for substantial compensation fueled speculation that the wounds ran deeper than anyone knew. This wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was a fracture in the carefully built legacy of a Hollywood icon. Then came the final blow. In 2015, Adina Hines was brutally murdered by her boyfriend on a New York street, reopening wounds that had never healed. Morgan said little, but the weight of the tragedy was unmistakable. A marriage destroyed by rumors, a family scarred by violence, and a legacy forever shadowed. The full truth may never be known, but the damage is undeniable. Harry Belafonte and Julie Robinson shared a marriage that shocked a nation divided by race and torn by civil rights turmoil. Belafonte was not just a music legend, but a fearless activist who used his fame as a weapon against injustice. Julie Robinson was the quiet force beside him, standing at the center of a storm few could survive. When they married in 1957, America was deep in one of its ugliest racial eras, and their union immediately became a lightning rod for controversy. From the moment they said, "I do," criticism exploded. Harry, revered as a black icon, was branded a traitor by some within his own community, accused of turning his back on his roots for marrying a white woman. He endured relentless pressure from both sides, white racism on one front and internal backlash on the other, placing their marriage under crushing strain from day one. His recent divorce from Marguerite Byrd only intensified the scrutiny, fueling gossip and deep divisions within his own family. Behind closed doors, their home became a battlefield where Harry fought to protect both his career and his love for Julie. As a close ally of Martin Luther King Jr., he lived under constant death threats that didn't stop with him. Julie and their children were pulled into the danger, forced to live with fear as a daily companion. The psychological toll was immense, shadows of violence never far from their door. Their nearly 50-year marriage was not a fairy tale, but a relentless test of endurance, sacrifice, and courage. They were more than husband and wife. They became living symbols of love standing defiantly against hatred, and of survival in a world where prejudice often meant life or death. Diana Ross and Arne Naess Jr., an A-list marriage undone by betrayal and irreconcilable worlds. Diana Ross, the undisputed queen of the Supremes, was a global soul icon whose voice commanded every stage she stepped onto. Arne Naess Jr., a wealthy adventurer and legendary mountaineer, lived a life driven by danger, freedom, and extremes, far removed from the polished glare of the music industry. They came from different planets, yet remained bound in marriage from 1985 to 2000. Sadly, their 15 years together were anything but serene. While Diana battled the crushing pressure of fame to remain at the top, Arne chased untamed peaks and an unpredictable lifestyle that made him feel like a stranger in her glittering world. Two souls, two realities, colliding again and again with wounds too deep to mend. The distance grew. The exhaustion mounted. Then came the final blow in 2000, when Diana discovered Arne's affair, a revelation that detonated what little trust remained and brought the marriage to an abrupt end. Infidelity became the final punctuation mark in a relationship already fractured by profound differences. 4 years later, tragedy struck once more when Arne died in a climbing accident in 2004. His death left Diana with a complex mix of sorrow and quiet release from a painful chapter. Two lives once tightly entwined ultimately unraveled, undone by incompatible worlds and unforgivable choices. What appeared glamorous on the surface concealed shadows far darker beneath. O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson. A marriage marked by violence and a murder case that stunned the world. Once celebrated as an American football hero and beloved TV personality, O.J. Simpson embodied fame, success, and charisma. Behind closed doors, however, Nicole Brown Simpson lived a far darker reality. What appeared to be a picture-perfect family slowly unraveled into a nightmare of fear and abuse. Between 1985 and 1992, their marriage became a real-life horror story, with Nicole repeatedly reporting violent attacks, records of which surfaced in court documents as early as 1989. Then came the unthinkable. In 1994, Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman were brutally murdered, sending shockwaves across America. O.J., once idolized by millions, was thrust into the spotlight as the prime suspect. The 1995 criminal trial exploded into one of the most sensational media spectacles in U.S. history. His acquittal ignited national outrage and deep division over race, justice, and celebrity power. 2 years later, a civil court found him liable, ordering him to pay $33.5 million, a devastating verdict that shattered what remained of his legacy. David Bowie and Iman. A love forged under pressure and sealed by profound loss. David Bowie was more than a music legend. He was a cultural force, crafting timeless songs and redefining style with fearless originality. Iman, an international supermodel, possessed not only breathtaking beauty but also a powerful presence and a career that broke barriers. They came from seemingly different worlds, yet in 1992, their lives intertwined. Their marriage was never simple. Bowie carried a turbulent past marked by addiction and fleeting romances, shadows that did not disappear overnight. Iman longed for stability, peace, and a true sense of home, things Bowie struggled to provide at first. All the while, they lived beneath the unforgiving glare of the media. As a rock icon and a global supermodel, every move they made was dissected, fueling rumors, gossip, and constant scrutiny. Tension was inevitable, but their bond proved stronger than the chaos surrounding them. Love became their anchor. Then, in 2016, tragedy struck. David Bowie, the magnetic artist, quietly lost his battle with cancer, a fight he had kept private. His death was not only a devastating loss to music and art, but a shattering heartbreak for Iman, his devoted wife. After years of weathering storms together, his sudden absence left an immeasurable void, one felt deeply by Iman and echoed across the world. Alfre Woodard and Roderick Spencer. A black-white marriage long dismissed and underestimated. Alfre Woodard is a powerhouse black actress, widely respected for unforgettable performances in 12 Years a Slave and countless other acclaimed films. Roderick Spencer, a white writer with a quiet but meaningful presence in the arts, chose to stay largely behind the scenes. Since 1983, the two have stood side by side, defying prejudice, pressure, and a society not yet ready to embrace interracial love. They came together in the mid-1980s, a time when America was beginning to open its eyes, but still deeply uncomfortable with black-white relationships. Their marriage sparked hushed controversy in the industry and among the public. Judgmental stares, whispered criticism, and relentless scrutiny followed them, coming from both outsiders and within their own professional circles. As Alfra's career soared with emotionally demanding roles, Roderick deliberately remained low-key, dedicating himself to his writing. But fame offered no protection from strain. Conflicting schedules and long separations tested their bond. While Alfra poured her soul into films like 12 Years a Slave, Roderick immersed himself in his work, and the distance between them quietly grew. They also adopted 2 children, and raising them in a multiracial family brought its own challenges. Teaching identity, resilience, and pride in a world still divided by race became a daily struggle. Yet through every obstacle, they leaned on one another, choosing commitment over collapse. Against all odds, they remained united, proving that their love was stronger than prejudice, louder than doubt, and enduring beyond time. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Sari Mercer were once a famously private couple, until their sudden breakup ignited rumors of betrayal. Ejiofor, the British-Nigerian actor who stunned the world with his Oscar-winning performance in 12 Years a Slave, often appeared alongside Mercer, a Canadian model and actress, on Hollywood's most glamorous red carpets. They began dating around 2013 and quickly looked like a perfectly matched pair. But in September 2015, their relationship ended abruptly. Just weeks after attending the Oscars with Mercer, Ejiofor was seen holding hands with model Frances Atherny at the Martian premiere, sending shockwaves through the media. Speculation intensified when rumors surfaced that he had reconnected with his Moonlight co-star Naomi Harris, while false claims that he and Mercer shared a child only deepened the confusion. A deeply private man, Ejiofor suddenly found himself trapped in a media storm, his rising career colliding with a painfully public personal unraveling. Ice-T and Coco Austin's high-profile marriage has long lived under a spotlight intensified by scandal and pressure. Ice-T, a rap pioneer turned respected actor, and Coco Austin, a well-known model and media personality, have been married since 2002, forming a power couple that defied age and racial boundaries while thriving across music, television, and pop culture. Yet behind the glamorous image, their relationship faced serious turbulence. In 2012, photos of Coco appearing overly close to rapper AP.9 ignited explosive infidelity rumors, prompting Ice-T to vent his anger publicly on social media and sending shockwaves through Hollywood. Their reality show, Ice Loves Coco, only magnified the scrutiny, turning intimate moments into public debate and relentless judgment, especially over their significant age gap. Compounding the strain, lingering prejudices within the hip-hop community toward interracial marriages added constant pressure. What once looked like a fairy tale romance evolved into a raw battle against media intrusion and cultural bias, exposing fractures that were difficult to heal, yet somehow still held together by a fragile, stubborn thread of love. Eddie Murphy and Paige Butcher. An age gap romance shadowed by controversy and the weight of a 10-child legacy. Eddie Murphy, a comedy icon with an unmatched career and unforgettable roles, found love with Paige Butcher, a striking model featured in top fashion magazines. When they went public in 2012, the relationship instantly made headlines. Scrutiny followed fast. Paige, 18 years younger, was dismissed by critics as a gold digger, while Eddie's complicated past refused to stay buried. His explosive 2007 custody battle with Mel B still loomed large, leaving his public image fragile. By the time Paige entered his life, Eddie was already the father of 10 children with multiple women, forming a complex and tightly woven family dynamic. Juggling a younger partner and children spanning generations turned their private life into a constant balancing act, one misstep away from chaos. Michael Jordan and Yvette Prieto, a marriage forever haunted by $168 million and the shadow of his past. Michael Jordan, the undisputed basketball legend and global icon, married Yvette Prieto, a Cuban-American model who once shined in the fashion world before stepping into the unforgiving spotlight of NBA royalty. Their 2013 wedding was never destined to be quiet or simple. The media never loosened its grip on Jordan, and Prieto quickly became a target for constant scrutiny, harsh comparisons, and relentless jabs. Looming over their new life was Jordan's infamous 2006 divorce from Juanita Vanoy, a split that reportedly cost him a staggering $168 million. Old rumors of infidelity, money, and the enduring fame of his ex-wife placed Yvette in an impossible position. She wasn't seen as just Michael Jordan's wife. She was treated as a replacement. Their 16-year age gap only fueled the pressure, with the public eager to tear their marriage apart by resurrecting every scandal from Jordan's loud and complicated past. Halle Berry and Olivier Martinez. A marriage shattered by allegations, old wounds, and public betrayal. Halle Berry, an Oscar-winning powerhouse and one of Hollywood's most celebrated beauty icons, married Olivier Martinez, the charming French actor known for his brooding screen presence. When they tied the knot in 2013, the union looked like a fairy tale. But just 3 years later, it unraveled spectacularly. Whispers of Martinez's alleged abusive behavior spread fast, while the media resurfaced Berry's painful past with ex-Eric Benet, who had publicly admitted to sex addiction and infidelity. Many wondered if Halle was trapped in a cycle of repeating old trauma. Soon, she found herself drowning in divorce proceedings, lawsuits, and a brutal custody battle. The once unbreakable star image was ripped apart by a ruthless press. Gone were the glamorous red carpets, replaced by shocking headlines and relentless scrutiny. It was pure chaos, leaving the haunting impression that Halle Berry had never truly known peace in marriage. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Sarah Kapfer. A 20-year marriage didn't just end, it detonated, taking a once brilliant career down with it. Cuba Gooding Jr., an Oscar-winning superstar and Hollywood golden boy, had everything. Beside him stood Sarah Kapfer, a schoolteacher who stayed loyal through the broke years, the rise to fame, and 2 decades of marriage that began in 1994. But by 2014, cracks turned into fractures. Mounting tension, a bitter split, and a drawn-out custody battle tore the family apart. After the divorce, the fall accelerated. In 2017, Cuba was hit with multiple groping allegations, instantly shattering his clean-cut image. The star who once shined on Hollywood's biggest stages began to spiral, buried under public backlash, financial strain, and rumors of an increasingly chaotic private life. Look closer, and the truth becomes unavoidable. This wasn't just the collapse of a marriage. It was the trigger for a relentless downward spiral of a man who once stood at the very top and lost it all. Whoopi Goldberg and Frank Langella. A quiet love forged between 2 wounded souls. Whoopi Goldberg, a once-in-a-generation cultural icon, and Frank Langella, a towering stage and screen legend with Tony and Oscar recognition, were never supposed to cross paths like this. Yet in 1996, bruised by heartbreak and public scrutiny, they collided almost instinctively. Whoopi was reeling from the fallout of her highly publicized romance with Ted Danson, a relationship that began in scandal and ended in abandonment. Langella, meanwhile, had just closed the door on a marriage that spanned nearly 20 years. Nothing was said out loud, but the truth was obvious. This connection was born from shared pain, not fantasy. They kept their relationship deliberately low-key, though the media never stopped watching. In 1999, they surfaced briefly together at the GLAAD Awards, and then, just as suddenly, disappeared from view. By 2001, it was over. No statements. No drama. Just silence. Decades later, when controversy pulled Langella back into the headlines, Whoopi's name was unfairly dragged along with it, reopening scars from a chapter she had long since closed. Because not every love story is a fairy tale garden. Some are fought in storms, etched in struggle, and painted with loss. What do you think about these turbulent interracial relationships born under pressure? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories hiding behind the spotlight. The next secret might surprise you.